Before we get started, if you're enjoying this content, you can do us a favor by subscribing to our YouTube channel and ringing the bell. That'll let the algorithm know that you like this content and it will help us produce more.
Understanding lifetime value, it helps you understand where can I push on some of the levers.
Welcome to Honest Ecommerce, a podcast dedicated to cutting through the BS and finding actionable advice for online store owners. I'm your host, Chase Clymer, and I believe running a direct-to-consumer brand does not have to be complicated or a guessing game. On this podcast, we interview founders and experts who are putting in the work and creating real results. I also share my own insights from running our top Shopify consultancy, Electric Eye. We cut the fluff in favor of facts to help you grow your e-commerce business. Let's get on with the show. Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of Honest Ecommerce. I am your host, Chase Clymer, coming to you through technical difficulties. We're making it happen. Today, I'm welcoming an extremely smart guest, and this is a topic that we have not dove deep into yet, so I'm super excited to chat today with Paul Orlando. Paul teaches growth hacking and venture initiation or innovation?
Venture initiation. But you can call
venture
it
initiation.
Either one sounds good. Maybe I'll change the name of the class.
Hey, who knows? But anyways, he's teaching that at the University of Southern California. He runs the university startup program. He's built and operated 4 startup accelerators around the world. And he just wrote a book on growth units. It's sitting on my desk, and I am terribly sorry I haven't read it yet. It's on my to-do list, but he's going to teach us today all about unit economics, lifetime value, customer acquisition cost, and why that can be difficult to calculate. Paul, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Chase. Really good to be here.
So first and foremost, take me back. What made you an e-commerce numbers geek?
So I'll actually tell you the literal moment that things changed, I guess, for me. So I had been working with startups for a while. I had a startup of my own in New York for a couple of years where I learned lots of things the hard way, and was looking at conversion funnels. Maybe I'll tell you a little story about that in a bit. But I ended up teaching at USC, kind of a coincidence of how I ended up there. And when I first got there, I decided I should really just get to know, the campus. And I spent a couple of months talking to as many people as I could. I talked to probably just 100 students when I first got hired, just in trying to understand what's going well, what do you wish you had, how am I going to build something that's meaningful here? And I always remember this one conversation I had. It was an MBA student at the time. He had an e-commerce company that he had been building. And he said to me, I had to take this mandatory class in marketing, to complete my degree. And last week I mentioned something about crowdfunding to the professor, and he had no idea what I was talking about. He had never heard of Kickstarter, things like this. And this is back in 2015. So it's not like these are brand new topics back then. So I started to, just to wonder what the level of access the students had to some of these newer ideas was. Out of that, I started, I basically wrote this proposal to teach this brand new class, a class focused in growth hacking, which I believe was completely new, for universities at the time anyway, certainly the first one at USC. And put this class together, and it's been something that I've learned a ton from. I think the students really enjoy it, and the way it works is I do 2 things in the class. So half of the work is I bring startups in. They get a student team to work with them on some element of their growth. It could be a paid ad campaign. It could be split testing, marketing copy. It could be trying to improve a conversion funnel, on and on. The other half, though, more like the classroom half, is all the stuff that's not really going to change. So all the unit economics, like the lifetime value, customer acquisition cost, how do you figure that out? And that's where I hit people most. Those things are going to remain regardless of whatever new app comes up and replaces, TikTok, which we weren't talking about, not that long ago. Whatever comes and replaces that, you're going to have to know unit economics. So that's kind of how I got into this space.
Oh, no, that's amazing. Well, now I'm going to say it out loud on the podcast, so this might become a more real thing. But I've always thought about looking into being an adjunct professor. I feel like I know a few things, and it would be fun to I always have fun. This podcast is fun. Educating clients is super fun. So I'm truly jealous of what you do to just be straightforward with you.
You could do it. You could absolutely do it. And like the value of going in as an adjunct. So if anybody listening like never heard that term, that basically means you're not a career academic. Your value comes from having built something, having worked somewhere. That expertise that you actually gained out in the marketplace, and now you're like bringing it back into, I guess, an academic environment in a classroom setting, but you're probably taking a totally different approach than a more academic, professor.
So you said something that I like really, it resonated with me as well. So we have like kind of like a framework that we use for growth for our clients using some of the KPIs that we're going to talk about here in a minute. But it's very simple and it's a framework because what you said is like some of this stuff is never going to change. But then there's the other side of it is like, within growth hacking, especially, it's like, it's usually like rapidly changing. So like, the economics behind how you can scale a business is always going to be the same, but the tactic you use to scale it, Facebook ads were huge 5 years ago. Now people are like diving super into TikTok and whatnot. But like, that's just the tactic changing. The strategy is still the same.
That is exactly it. And that's why, I figure like if I look back on the time that I've been just teaching that growth hacking class, the stuff that we were doing in 2015, 2016, it seems so quaint, like now. And obviously, just as you said, like, the platforms that you use are going to change. Or you might say, the things that used to be cheap, or that, because people hadn't discovered them yet, become expensive, they stop working. But that overall framework or that thought process is still going to help you, in years to come. So, so like I figure, my value add is not necessarily going to be on staying up on like every, like new thing that you should get into, but instead it's going to be, okay, how do you understand the way these things work? And if you want to go and you're now using, like Web3 stuff, or you're using like, something else that, maybe I or others are less familiar with, or I've never done it myself, yet, that's totally fine. But the thought process is still going to work for you.
Absolutely. So let's dive in here. This one is, I don't know, these are all kind of difficult concepts, but you're a professor, so you should hopefully be able to explain it in a way that our listeners can pick up.
We'll see.
Let's dive into lifetime value. And, I'll give you an easy one here. Like, why is this important to like the longevity of my brands? I priced my products. Why do I care about lifetime value?
This is a really important concept for a couple of reasons. So first of all, if you're talking about building a sustainable business, and I mean financially sustainable in this sense, you have to understand this. So lifetime value is, maybe I'll just step through like the parts of it, and then out of that comes why it's important. So there's a few parts to it. So you have your unit price, whatever you're charging for this thing. You have the unit costs, and that can, those two things can dramatically, be different. You could price based on like the value that you're creating. You could try to move the costs somewhat, maybe with, if it's a physical product with like, bulk, purchases. If it's software, like your costs in theory per unit are very low. So you have those two pieces. And then you also have some measure of retention. So like repeat purchases that people are, they're coming back, they're buying again and again, whether it's they're going to like your website, your e-commerce store, and they're like, clicking buy again, or it's a subscription of some type and it's a little more predictable. So you have those three parts. And then if you just stopped there, you could multiply a couple things out and it gives you this number. And you say, okay, lifetime value is, for us, it's $100, it's $1,000, whatever. What you miss though is the timing. So when I do this exercise, for companies and like when I, have done it for myself, I like to actually model it out like it's a sequence of flows. So you could just think about doing this in a spreadsheet if you want to, manually do it. that will give you a better understanding of, okay, when do I get those payments in, or when am I paying out for things? And if you do that, it'll give you like a better understanding of, okay, you used to say lifetime value was $100. Oh, actually, it takes me 2 years to get that $100. Or no, actually, I get that, all up front, depending on the business type. But if you're building a business and, even if you raise money, eventually this has to be a financially sustainable, business. Understanding lifetime value, but it helps you understand, where can I push on some of the levers? Should I try to increase price? Should I work on retention, et cetera? It's just kind of like the core understanding of how your business works.
If you're struggling with scaling your sales, maybe Electric Eye can help. Our team has helped our clients generate millions of dollars in additional revenue through our unique brand scaling framework. You can learn more about our agency at electriceye.io. That's electriceye.io. Mesa is the expansion pack for your Shopify store to level up your brand. By turning all your apps into your business epicenter, Mesa can help lighten your workload and tame the day-to-day chaos of running your store. Join successful brands like Mudwater, Chubbies, and Golden to learn how to use clever workflows to get more done without more overhead. Whether you need to order details in Google Sheets, products added on Etsy, or customer information updated in your CRM, Mesa connects your data where it's needed most. To put it quite simply, Mesa is a better way to work. Browse pre-made templates for Shopify's most popular apps to get your first automation up and running in minutes. Search Mesa, that's M-E-S-A, in the Shopify App Store and download the app today. Is your store holiday ready? Now is the time to make sure you and your team are prepared for the busy season ahead. Gorgias, an omni-channel help desk built for e-commerce, has machine learning functionality that takes the pressure off small support teams and gives them the tools to manage a large number of inquiries at scale, especially during the holiday season. Gorgias combines all your different communication channels like email, SMS, social media, live chat, and even phone into one platform and gives you an organized view of all your customer inquiries. Their powerful functionality can save your support team hours per day and makes managing customer orders a breeze. Merchants can close tickets faster than ever with the help of pre-written responses integrated with customer data to increase the overall efficiency of customer support. Their built-in automations also free up time for support agents to give better answers to complex product-related questions, providing next-level support, which helps increase sales, brand loyalty, and recognition. Eric Bandholtz, the founder of Beard Brand, says, "We're a 7-figure business, and we have essentially one person on customer support and experience. It's impossible to do it without tools such as Gorgias to help us innovate." Learn how to level up your customer support by speaking to their team. Visit gorgias.grsm.io/honest. Mention this podcast when you sign up to get 2 months free. That's gorgias.grsm.io/honest. Today's show is sponsored by the BeProfit app for e-commerce sellers. If you're looking to get a crystal clear picture of your online store's profitability, the best way to do that is with the BeProfit Profit Tracker. Your online business probably has a ton of different expenses that often shift and change. What if you could keep accurate track of things like ad spend and production costs and get an accurate profit margin calculation without the headache of spreadsheets or half-baked apps? That's where BeProfit comes in. BeProfit lets you analyze all of your store's data quickly and accurately to stay on track and optimize your profits. I know a lot of our listeners out there probably keep track of their profits and expenses with a spreadsheet. That will work for a while, but as your store starts to scale up, that simply isn't a viable method of accurately measuring profitability anymore. BeProfit can change all of that for you. Available on Shopify and all the other top e-commerce platforms, the app offers advanced analytic tools to turn mountains of data into intuitive charts and graphs in the blink of an eye. Customize your dashboard, discover valuable insights, and zoom in on the metrics that matter most to you. Take it a step further and gain full control over your data by creating and exporting custom reports. You can even find out which are your most valuable products, top performing ads, best customer cohorts, and so much more with the BeProfit Profit Tracker. Visit beprofit.co today to start your 7-day trial. Don't forget to use code HONEST15, that's HONEST15, to get an exclusive 15% off any plan you choose for the lifetime of your plan. That's beprofit.co, discount code HONEST15. Getting an online business off the ground isn't easy. So if you find yourself working late, tackling a to-do list that's a mile long with your 5th cup of coffee by your side, remember, great email doesn't have to be complicated. That's what Klaviyo is for. It's the email and SMS platform built to help e-commerce brands earn more money by creating genuine customer relationships. Once you set up your free Klaviyo account, you can start sending beautiful, branded messages in minutes thanks to drag-and-drop design templates and built-in guidance. And with e-commerce specific recommendations and insights, you can keep growing your business as you go. Get started with a free account at klaviyo.com/honest. That's klaviyo.com/honest. A follow-up question would be there. You said there's a few variables involved. So there, from my understanding of it, there isn't a one way to calculate this.
That's true. You will see many different ways people do this. The way I have come to like the most is, I guess it's that way I started to describe. So you will see people who do it purely using revenue and not factoring unit cost in. You'll see people who only do it as a single static number rather than as a sequence of flows. I like the way I do it because it does let you see those 3 different parts that you could try to push on. And of course, if you try to push on one, you might impact the other 2. But I figure like the biggest difference that I see, so like the most common other way of doing it, I'd say, is just using top line revenue or like unit, like the unit price. You're losing a lot of information there. In other words, you could be selling a product at which you are, losing money on every sale in the extreme example, and yet in that different calculation of lifetime value, it seems like things are great. So I like to add those unit costs in. Obviously, that's not all the costs you have, like, stuff like, compensation, rent, things like that are fixed costs. They don't get baked in typically to a lifetime value calculation. But at least putting in a unit cost, it helps me understand, okay, every time I sell one of these things, what's really happening? Like, what's that contribution margin I get back?
Absolutely. And I think that one thing I want to highlight about the way that you're approaching this this calculation is the time for return. Like, when am I going to see that money return? Because if it does take longer than I guess you can float the business with cash on hand to see that money come back from an acquisition standpoint, you could go bankrupt. And I might have just went to 300 level stuff real fast. So I really want to break that down really, really easily. Could you try to explain what I just said in the simplest terms?
Yeah. So, and this is what I call, in that growth units book, I call it the difference between static LTV, or here's a single number, and dynamic, or LTV is a river of flows that come in. So yeah, product businesses, especially physical product businesses, if we're talking food and beverage, if we're talking especially hardware, where you are buying components and assembling them, there's typically this lag time that you have just in the normal way the business operates. You have to buy some type of components or ingredients, or you have to pay somebody first, and only after that do you finally have the ability to sell and get paid. Setting aside things like pre-sales or stuff like that. But if you don't consider that timing, then exactly what you just said. If you don't consider it, then you might think, oh, this is amazing. I signed up a new customer. As far as I understand, I'm going to make whatever the number is, $100 back from them. But if you don't realize that, it's going to take you a year, 2 years to actually get that money back. You've constricted the way you can grow. And then also, especially if you are paying for acquisition, we haven't talked about customer acquisition cost yet, but if you're paying for acquisition, then you might actually, like you said, you might already be out of business by the time that you could have received that LTV, back. So yeah, understanding timing is really important.
Yeah, I mean, let's just segue right into customer acquisition costs, and that one might be a little more straightforward, I think, to explain out. But I'll let you do the honors.
Sure. So I like to do this on a per customer basis. So here again, a way that you will often see people do customer acquisition cost is they'll say, okay, well, last month, I spent 10 grand on all my, my marketing, all my customer acquisition efforts. 10 grand, I signed up 1,000 customers. So CAC is $10. And that's a little challenging, right? So first of all, you don't necessarily know if what you spent in that month is directly, connected to the people who became customers in that month. So you've got that timing issue there as well. But I like to do it a little differently, so rather than here's the aggregate, that might be all that you can do in some situations, but I like to do it where I can based on like a customer per customer sign up. So for me, it's two parts. It's how much it costs to get somebody in the door, like what I call in the door, which could literally mean in the door of your store or, in the door of your website, right? Anything digital. And then divided by the conversion rate that, once they are there, how likely are they to convert to be a paid customer? So, it could be, okay, it costs me $1 to get somebody to, click an ad and land on my website. And then once they're there, they convert at 10%, $10 customer acquisition cost. And if you do it that way, and I'll say both for CAC and for LTV, if you do it in this way, you can then start to get like a little deeper into these numbers. So rather than there just being one number, CAC is $10, you can say, oh, well, what we've seen is this channel, like Facebook ads, CAC is like, $10. TikTok, it's $5. We have this, we have this mailing list that we just organically grew. That's $0, and you can start to then do CAC by channel. You could also then do it by type of customer. So like, are you getting could literally be like the value to them, to your business. So are you getting a premium customer signed up? Are you getting somebody who is, there on a basic plan, like all variations of that? Same on the LTV side, segmenting that out by customer type, by channel, gives you a lot of value. And then connecting the two, LTV and CAC, you could then talk about payback periods. So you might, say, okay, well, for this type of segment or this channel, LTV is $100, CAC is $10. Seems like we've got a really healthy ratio there, 10-1. But in this case, it takes us like 2 years to actually recoup that $100. And it takes us, making up the numbers here, it takes us like, 3 months to pay back that $10 acquisition cost. Can I eat that cost for $10 or for 3 months? Yes, no? Okay. Do it, don't do it. So yeah, my whole, the whole reason I kind of like go into this detail, both with you here and like in the book is, we hear these numbers or these terms thrown around a lot. Once you really want to get into some of the detail, you're going to have to change the way you think a little bit. But like understanding this framework of, okay, how do I calculate these two important metrics for my business, LTV and CAC? And then how do I understand the relationship between them? And then therefore, if I want to try to grow, what do I think is going to happen or what might change? If I want to pump more money into an ad campaign, probably I'm going to not perform very well in the very beginning. I'm just figuring things out. Maybe I improve a little bit because my ad copy is better, or like the way I do it is better. And then I run out of people eventually. And so like the cost starts to go up again, or I run out of the ideal customer. Same thing for LTV, might work a little differently. Like, hey, I'm improving the product as I go along. Maybe I can actually drive LTV up over time. And that's what you see. Like if you look at companies that have been around for a while, and if you can get their numbers, or if you talk to people, or if they're a public company, you can see their numbers. Like if you look at a company like Facebook, the most recent annual report that they showed, like if you look at the US region for them, they earn, I believe it's something like $30 or $30 some per user per quarter. So $120, $130 per year. And maybe that's going to go down a little bit with competition from TikTok, now. But if you look at their annual reports from a few years ago, it was like half of that, number, or maybe even less. So there's an example of a business that even as they grew, they got better at either showing ads, more appropriately, like they were improving the revenue side of their product. Whether you as a user like that isn't, or not, because you're seeing more ads, or, it's more annoying. But over time, if you stick with this, you should be able to figure out, okay, how do I improve some of the levers, that make up LTV and CAC?
Yeah. And, another thing to consider is once you have an understanding of these numbers, it makes you a lot more comfortable with leveling up on your marketing investments. And, the biggest example I can think of this is Starbucks. They are saying that their customer lifetime values are in the tens of thousands of dollars. So that's why they're on every corner. That's why you see their marketing everywhere, is because they've done the calculation and they're like, if we can get them through the door once, we should do it 100 cups, 1,000 cups more. I don't know how the math is. Starbucks is expensive.
No, and that's such a great example. And we sometimes don't think of like big companies that have been around for decades, as still like experimenting or trying to improve the way they work it, but it's so true. And in that Starbucks example, that's why they ended up at least 20 years ago, or more, saying, all right, how do we make this the place that people will go and hang out? Like the typical model, before them was, coffee is coffee. You go in, to a diner, you get a cheap cup of coffee, you're out. There's no reason I would want you to sit here for hours. But for Starbucks, it's like, well, hey, if you sit here for hours, like the tough thing was actually getting you in. Sit here for hours, you order that second coffee or buy something there. That is like, it's a really fat margin that you have in the coffee business. So like it's totally worth it. I even remember I was talking to the founder of Kinko's a few years ago, and he was explaining how when he started that business, so Kinko's is they make copies, basically, you get things printed or bound, whatever. Seems like a really straightforward business. And I believe he was talking to some outside potential investors who at the time were telling him, you got to stop giving away so many, like somebody comes up and they say, I wanted this reprinted. You're just doing it like for free for them. You need to like start to charge. People are going to take advantage of you. You shouldn't give away like the free copy. And his pushback was basically, look, that costs nothing. Paper is super cheap. The ink is super cheap. I already bought the machines. So if they're idle, they're not generating anything for me. I'm not saving anything either. So somebody comes in and wants me to redo like a copy for them. I should just do it, because if I don't, I'm going to upset them. They're not going to come for the next project they have. I might as well just give that away. It costs me like pennies, and then in the long run, I'm making like multiples of that. So yeah, I think like those big businesses where you see a lot of them, like lots of these copy places, coffee shops, where they are thinking long term and they do have a brand, they can do something that's a little special. It's a little different than like the mom and pop, coffee store, or the mom and pop, like, we have a copy machine, come in for the copies. So, I love looking at, traditional businesses, because you could actually learn a lot. They've lived this long, so you could learn a lot from how they were successful.
Absolutely. I mean, you can learn so much from the kind of the older school models, but that's the big difference between that and like modern e-commerce is modern e-commerce is so lean and it goes so fast. And if you don't have an understanding of these numbers, like you can't really, you're not going to be able to scale the way that you want. B, you're not going to ever be able to get investment, because that's the first thing you ask is for some of these numbers. So it's a fun space to be in.
Definitely.
So I got your book right here. For people on YouTube, this is what it looks like. For people listening on the podcast thing, please go subscribe on YouTube. We're trying to get those numbers up. So anyways, what else is going to be in this book if they actually want to go and pick it up?
So I wrote this to be like really straightforward, really useful. My whole, and I'll even mention, like, I ended up putting this together because my style of working with startups, in these accelerator programs, or my style of teaching was always just like live in the moment. Here, let me put something up on the whiteboard. Let's work through this, we'll figure this formula out together kind of thing. And then when everything went remote, with COVID, I just realized that model didn't work as well or wasn't as natural anymore. So I wrote this book very much in a natural, easy to understand way. So what's in it is a section up front that helps you understand customer acquisition cost. We kind of talk through some of the elements of that. Conversion funnels, same for lifetime value, looking at churn, looking at different types of retention. And then also, something that I added in because we ended up seeing this, with the pandemic, what happens with inflation increasing that, you weren't expecting that previously. And now you end up getting that. And then the second part of the book, I go through some like mini case studies about specific types of business types. So I ended up looking at everything from like mattress, both the physical and digital, mattress sales, subscriptions, mobility companies, consumer packaged goods, I even threw in some stuff on organized crime and CAPTCHAs and cryptocurrency. So I think it's a fun read because it gives you this really kind of broad mix of business types. But up front, like the core of that first half is, let's just make sure I can step through this framework and understand how it might work for my business if I'm trying to understand my own LTV and CAC.
Absolutely, Paul. And if I'm listening to this show and I want to go and pick up the book, where do I go?
Easiest place to go is Amazon. Just search for the title Growth Units and you should see it.
Yeah, it's a big yellow, black, and red cover. It says Paul Orlando on there, and you should pick it up. Is there anything I forgot to ask you today that you think would resonate with our audience? I
think we covered a lot of the big things here. But like the last thing, it's not that you forgot to ask me, but the last thing I would say is, if you're coming up with just a single number for any of these metrics, like, LTV is $100 or CAC is $10, that means that you probably are just starting to dig in. And once you go another level in, you'll find that you have multiple answers to that question. So I hope that, your listeners here, like, take that second step, go a little deeper. And if you check out that Growth Units book. I think it will help you out.
Awesome. Paul, thank you so much for coming on the show.
It was a pleasure. Thanks, Chase.
All right. I can't thank our guests enough for coming on the show and sharing their knowledge and journey with us. We've got a lot to think about and potentially add into our own business. You can find all the links in the show notes. Make sure you head over to honestecommerce.co to check out all of the other amazing content that we have. Make sure you subscribe, leave a review, and obviously, if you're thinking about growing your business, check out our agency at electriceye.io. Until next time.